Welcome to Silver Bar Stacker, folks. I hope everybody's doing well and enjoying the start of their Stack Pack Sunday. That's right, folks. Today is Stack Pack Sunday here at SBS, and that means that we've got a nice silver sale for you today, and I'm excited to get into the details about what is going on with that silver sale. But before we get into that, I've got to talk about today's topic that we want to discuss for today, and that is my favorite rounds that are in existence, and that is the Engelhard American Prospector rounds. And now these are a collection of vintage rounds. They're dating back decades, and so these are no longer in production, and a lot of people are actually familiar with these rounds. These are kind of some of the most recognizable rounds that are out there, as they were kind of some of the first commercially produced rounds here in the United States. And so these rounds here actually predate the American Silver Eagle. See, the American Silver Eagle started being produced in 1986, whereas the Engelhard American Prospector rounds started being produced in 1982 and ceased being produced, at least the standard production rounds ceased being produced in 1987. So if you think about the timeline of when these American Engelhard Prospector rounds were produced, it's a very, very interesting history, right? Because you have them entering the marketplace as almost kind of being, I would say, the market leader when it comes to kind of commercially produced bullion for the general public, right? People were able to come in and purchase their own 1 ounce rounds, and so that was something that preceded the U.S. Mint's ability to do that. And so in 1986, when the U.S. Mint decided to do that, they started minting millions and millions of American Silver Eagles, not just the 75,000 a year, right? That they were doing at Engelhard. That's small time. They entered the big leagues once we enter the U.S. Mint era, right? And so I'm not saying necessarily that it's the U.S. Mint that put Engelhard and all these other smaller refiners out of business, but certainly it would be difficult to keep up with that sort of competition. And so they ceased productions starting in 1987, 1988 era. So that kind of gives a little bit of history and a little bit of context for the American Prospector rounds by Engelhard. Now let's go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty of each of the years. So now, before, what I was telling you was that when it comes to the standard production rounds on the 1 ounce rounds, every single year that they produced rounds, 75,000 of each type was minted. And so that's something that was consistent across each year. You got 1982, 1983, 1984, 1985, 1986, and 1987. And so in 1982, this is actually the first year that the American Prospector round was ever produced when it comes down to the silver round variety. Now when it comes to the gold prospectors, there's actually gold prospectors produced in the 70s, but we're talking here strictly about the American Prospector silver rounds, standard production silver rounds, not the proofs, not the gold prospectors, not the fractional prospectors. We're talking about just the 1 ounce standard production rounds. There's 75,000 of these 1982 E logo 1 ounce rounds that were minted. Now if you look at the back here, I said E logo, and that's because right here you'll notice that there's actually an E logo. The Engelhard E has been formed inside a globe, and that is what we call the big E logo. And so last week we did a video on the big E logo bars when it comes to Engelhard bars, and there's a big variety of those as well, but today we're covering the American Prospector rounds by Engelhard. And so the 1982 round contains the E logo, and this is the first year that these were produced, and so this is actually personally my favorite year Prospector, because I like the first year issue of things. I find that it adds a little bit more collectability to it. Now, speaking of collectability, when it comes down to key dates and harder to find dates, the 1983 is going to be the round that fits that criteria. The 1983 is by far the hardest round to find. Now, I said before that each of these years there was only 75,000 minted, and that's correct. There was 75,000 minted in 1983 as well. However, for whatever reason, it's very, very difficult to find the 83. So I don't know if that means that there's somebody out there who's hoarding a bunch of 83s and just diamond handing them. I don't know if that means that somebody had bought a bunch of 1983s and now they lost them, or they're in the bottom of the ocean somewhere. But whatever the case may be, there is a phenomenon out there, and I can definitively say this after going through thousands and thousands of prospectors myself, that the 1983s are by far the key date and by far the most difficult round to find. So this right here, compared to the 82, the only difference is that it's got the 83 on the front date stamp. The back also has an E logo reverse, and so That's literally the only difference. It's just the 1983 date there. But that demands quite a bit of a premium compared to any of the other dates. I would say after the 83, the next hardest date to find will maybe be the 87, right? But the 87 is nowhere near as hard to find as the 83. So that's a very interesting thing to know. The 82, the 83, and the 84 are the only years where they actually had the E logo there on the back. And so here again on this 84, you'll see that there's an E logo on the back of this. And so the E logo is actually the reverse. There's two different reverses. There's an E logo reverse and there's an eagle reverse. Now that E logo reverse that I showed you is actually the more uncommon of the two. This is only minted across 3 different years, so 75,000 plus 75,000 plus 75,000, and that's it. That's it for the E logo rounds when it comes to the standard production silver rounds, 1 ounce silver rounds. Now you'll notice here also that this is in 1984 and this is also in 94. Now something interesting to note about 1984 is that 1984 is the only year where Engelhard actually produced 2 separate reverses on the Prospector round. And so when I said that there was 75,000 minted of each type each year, that's exactly what I meant. It's in 1984 there was actually 150,000 prospectors that were minted and there was 75,000 of each type. And so this is the only year that you'll have where you've got the same year but 2 different reverses, and so that's pretty cool as well. Now on the SBS store, we actually sell Prospector packs that are 1984, dedicated just to 1984. So we have a 1984 Prospector pack where if you're just looking to grab a couple ounces, you can grab one of each reverse, right? Grab a 1984 Eagle and grab a 1984 E logo, and there you go. You got yourself a nice variety pack for a pretty good deal. So that's available on the Silver Bar Stacker website. I'm pretty excited to be able to have that available for the masses. Now, some of the other cool things that we have available are also partial fractional sets as well as full fractional sets. So in 1984 you had the 2 different reverses, which is pretty interesting. What makes 1985 unique is, well, they just had the single reverse with the American Silver Eagle. They have the Silver Eagle reverse there, no E logo for 1985. But the cool thing about 1985 is that 1985 is the only year that they made fractional rounds, fractional Prospector rounds. So these are legitimate, authentic Engelhard Prospector rounds of the fractional variety, also dated 1985. And this came in 3 different varieties here. This came in a half ounce, which you see up here, a quarter ounce, which you see right here, and also a 1/10 ounce. So these are the 3 different fractionals. And what's very, very interesting to note, in addition to 1985 being the only year that they did fractionals, is that these 1985 fractionals are actually lower mintage than any of these 1 ounce production rounds. So the 1 ounce production rounds, like I said, are 75,000 minted each year. When you get down to the half ounce round and the 1/10 ounce round, now we're talking 50,000 minted. Instead of 75,000, it drops down to 50,000. And when you go down to the quarter ounce, the 1/4 ounce round, 25,000 minted. So this right here, out of all of these, and maybe the 83 also is very, very highly sought after, but the 83 and the 1/4 ounce Prospector would by far be the hardest to source, I would say, for sure. So if you're trying to build collections from scratch, for example, these are probably the ones that you're going to want to start with, right? Because when you look at Morgan Dollars, for example, right, some Morgan Dollars are through the roof, right? Because there's a lot of collectors of Morgan Dollars out there, and so they start sweeping floors for all the dates. The key dates are the ones that go first. And so right now, if you look, I mean, I'm not much into collecting Morgan Dollars, but if you looked at the key dates, you'll find that they're quite unreasonably priced. And so that's kind of what happens with, low liquid. When there's very few pieces out there in a particular collector's market, the pieces dry up fast and the pricing ends up going through the roof pretty quickly for some of the harder to find dates. So that's why I would say that if you're, SBS, on the SBS website, we try to make it easy. We try to make these collections in advance so that you could just easily go and grab them, right? So if you wanted to go and grab a full Prospector set, you could go do that on the website. If you wanted to go grab every single year that exists, all 7 round examples from every single year, you could go and do that on the website, the SBS website. We have listings for that setup. I don't think there's very many stores out there that have listings like that set up, specialized specifically for American Prospector round, but at any time, if you want, you can go and grab those on the website. So this right here is a full fractional set, a 1985 full fractional set. We also have partial sets where it just comes with kind of like a single 1 ounce round and just a 10th ounce round if you're just not looking to splurge on the whole set. But regardless, this is pretty cool 1985 fractionals, right? You got the 1 ounce round, you got the half ounce round, you got the 4th ounce round, you got the 10th ounce round. And I like to sometimes just throw in these little 1 gram commemorative rounds sometimes. Sometimes I just throw this in with orders of just a single Prospector round, but this is not actually produced by Engelhard. This is just a bunch of novelty 1 gram fracs that I just got printed up so that I could just kind of gift these little giftables. I like to gift fracs sometimes, so I like to just toss these little fractionals. But these right here weren't produced by Engelhard. I just find them to be cool little giftables because I'm a big fan of the Prospector rounds myself. Now, 1984, 1985, this marks 2 years that they did the Eagle reverse. 1986 to 1987 will be the last 2 years. So remember how I said the E logo reverse was something that was minted across fewer years? That's correct. It was minted across just 3 years, whereas the Eagle was minted across 4 separate years. So the 86 and the 87 Eagle, it's nothing special, right? It's got the 86 and the 87 date stamp, of course, but on the back it's just a standard Eagle, right? And so you're going to have to let me know, do you like the Eagle reverse more or do you like the E logo reverse more? I personally, when it comes down to those two reverses, I personally go for the E logo reverse because personally for me, I'm a big fanboy when it comes to first year issue of things. And so the 82 is my favorite round. The E logo itself is the less common of the reverses. And so I tend to gravitate towards the things that I can't have. And so I like to go for the E logo personally, but let me know what you think about these rounds, and let me know if there's anything new that you learned about this round. I think a lot of the topics that I covered here are maybe something that you've heard already potentially on other videos that cover the American Prospector rounds, but something maybe that you didn't know, for example, on the 85, is that in addition to 85 being the only year that they had fractional rounds, there's actually 3 different versions of the 85 out there. A lot of people don't know that. I haven't gone through my box of 85s yet, but there's actually a little bit of nuances when it comes to the 85. And so take a look at your 85s closely. You'll notice that there's a little bit of difference here, like in the details of the ripples of the water. In some versions, like this version, you'll notice that those details are quite defined, right? It's quite a defined ripples. Other versions, which I don't have one handy right with me, I don't even know if I honestly have an example of that, but other versions have less defined ripples. Others have different variation with the way that the date is placed. So there's some subtle variations with the 1985 1 ounce standard production round, and all Engelhard states that there's 3 different variations of that standard 1985 round. So that's another interesting to note and keep an eye on if you're into collecting the Prospector rounds, and if you get a little bit more obsessive than the average Joe when it comes to collecting the Prospector rounds. Something interesting to note that you might not have known of. So I thought I would state that little tidbit there because for the people who are veterans when it comes to the Prospector rounds, who know that there's everything to know about them. Maybe that's something that you didn't know, or hey, maybe it is something that you knew, and that's another refresher for you as well. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this wonderful coverage of all of the Prospector rounds. Like I said, we do have the full fractional sets available on the website. We also have the full year Prospector sets available on the website. The full year sets will give you 7 ounces of silver. That's 6 dates, 7 different types of the Prospector rounds. The 1985 Prospector packs will give you 1.85 ounces of silver. That would be a 1985 1 ounce round, a half ounce round, a quarter ounce round, and a 10th ounce round. And then we've also taken the liberty of going ahead and adding all of the single year Prospector rounds available as buy it now listings on the website as well, with the exception of the 1983. The 1983 is something that is very difficult for us to source, and so we like to reserve all of our 1983 dates for the full year sets, right? So we have the full year sets available for those who want to just grab every single year in one shot. at kind of like a slight discount. Or if you'd like to just, pick away and start at your collection slowly, you can go ahead and grab any of the other years. We've got all the other years available on the website. And something that I'm going to do for today's drop, and we're going to have a few of these packages available just because there's limited amount of sets that we have available, full sets that we have available. What we're going to do today is we're going to have kind of like a little mega package when it comes to the Prospector sets. So everything that you see here, we're going to give everything to you here for $450. Now when it comes down to our website and just the standard full year sets, we sell the just the full year sets without the fractionals for almost that much. So I would say it's a pretty good deal if you were kind of eyeing down the full fractional set as well as the full year Prospector set. Then this would be a good opportunity to grab everything in one shot if you got the funds to do it. Because if you buy the full fractional set separately and then you buy the full year set separately, you're going to come out paying a little bit more, whereas if you just got the whole bundle in one shot while we're running the special this week. So $450 out the door will get you everything that you see here, and I hope some of you can take advantage of this sale while we got it going on. But if not, like I said, we specialize in this stuff and we've always got this stuff available for you. So no need to rush, no need to FOMO, but if you are in the market to pick up some Prospector rounds, now is a good time to do so. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.